Hey everyone, welcome to Concordia Jedi. I'm Asher.
I'm Aaron.
So we gave you our thoughts on Star Wars A New Hope. We're going to give you our thoughts on Star Wars The Empire Strikes Back, Episode 5. General thoughts?
Well, as I said in my recent rankings, again, I think, in the original trilogy, it falls as the second best of the original trilogy. I think my favorite parts of the film, kind of now, getting to watch it again and kind of having it fresh in my mind, were some of the little parts that kind of built things up.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the whole Vader and Luke fight kind of is the climax to all of that.
Yeah. General thoughts to me, I still very much enjoy the film, as I do all the Star Wars films.
Agreed.
This one is my least favorite of the original trilogy, mainly because, with the exception of Luke on Dagobah with Yoda, the whole second act of this film, mainly when it comes to the Falcon evading the Empire, a lot of it feels very drawn out to me and quite honestly not very exciting. It's still good, it's still done well, but to me it's where I kind of lose interest in the film a little bit.
Now, what do you
The best parts for me for this film are before the Falcon leaves Hoth and after it gets to Cloud City.
Now, do you think they could have still had it dragged out as they did, but could they have added more to, or maybe just not even more, just maybe a little bit to make you, I don't know, lack of a better word to say, more interested?
I don't know that they could have, because speaking objectively, the film is very, very good and changed a lot. So I feel like if they were changing stuff just for my personal preferences, the film probably wouldn't have turned out as good. So I'm just speaking from my personal views. I don't think really anything could have been changed in that area, as I think it's still a very good film. It's just my least favorite for the reasons that I feel it drags a little bit in the middle. Also, there's a lot of little tiny things that get on my nerves about it. One of the big one being, how long is the Falcon in space with a broken hyperdrive, like evading the Empire, and how long is Luke on Dagobah? That's never answered, because if Luke's only on Dagobah for as long as the Falcon is in space, and we're just going by what the film gives us, Luke's probably on Dagobah for max maybe a week. And
maybe 2 at max.
2 at max, but even then, I don't know how 2 weeks of training is enough to prepare you against Darth Vader. Or if they're out there,
he is a Skywalker.
Yeah,
after all.
but also if they're out there longer, that adds in a whole new dimension of, well, how long are they out there? How much training did Luke get from Yoda? That's something that it's just never answered in the film.
Now, what would
also how the heck they were able to survive in the stomach of that space worm with only an oxygen mask on, because I don't know if you know this about space, but it takes a little bit more than an oxygen mask to survive. There's also the whole thing of pressurization, the immense freezing cold of space. It's a couple of questions that I have that are never answered, but anyway.
So, lost my train of thought there.
What do you like about the film? Like what are some of the stuff that really stands out to you about Empire?
I think of course everybody's, well, I won't necessarily think everybody's favorite moment, but of course the I am your
Big
father.
Moment, yeah.
How can you not? It's no, I am your father, just like, how big is that? Of course, you gotta love that. When I was watching this, I'd forgotten all about how much I liked how much more C-3PO in this film for me, the side commentary that he kind of has is somewhat comical, and it's kind of fun to have that
know.
there.
I'm a bit on the opposite end when it comes to 3PO for this film. In my opinion, this film is where 3PO is at his most annoying. And I know that's part of his character. Before you go, I know he's supposed to be one, but I think they went a little overboard with this one because in the other films, he's annoying, but he's also helpful in what he's doing. He's also contributing. In this one, it seems like his only job is to bitch and moan, and it just...
I think to an extent I agree, but at the same time, there are
I
some...
love C-3PO as a character. I love... It's not like... he's not Jar Jar levels of annoying, but it still gets on my nerve. Like,
right. Now, but the thing that I think that is great...
Even the characters get annoyed with him. They're like... it's like... Yo, it's successfully navigator. Shut up!
Right.
I love that.
Like, I know. I agree. I'm just saying, I think there are some of his best lines. There are some better lines for him in the whole saga, but I think there are some of his best lines in the saga in this film. And I say that because, there's just certain scenes where it's just like, how should I put it? Let me make this better. C-3PO has some of his best moments, but I think it's even better. I think the best moments of C-3PO are when it's with R2-D2. Like, for example...
Yeah, he has some great banter.
For example, of course, when R2 with the hyperdrive, R2-D2, you know better than to trust him. Computer. And then it's like... You haven't finished with me yet. You're
I'm standing here in pieces, and you're having delusions of grandeur.
And then he fixes the thing and just, you did it!
Yeah.
I just...
Also, just open the door, you stupid lump!
Right, I'm saying.
He has some great banter with R2, but I do think he's kind of... But what else do you like in this?
But, I also like the building... lack of a better way to say it, pressure and darkness to it, because I forgot how just tense it can get, and you're just like how the Empire is just closing in, and they're kind of on the run, and it's just like, and then after they've been caught, it's okay, Luke's gonna come in and try and shake things up, but how much is he gonna get done? And
fails.
Right? But also the question is going in, if you're a Star Wars fan. You've watched it before, but you're kind of like looking to review it. You already know going in. You're like not necessarily knowing the story, but already know that it's bound to happen that Luke is going to fail. The question is, how successfully is he going to be, and how much is he going to actually get done?
How successfully is he going to be? How successful is he going to be? You said successfully. Sorry, grandmas. But I agree with you.
Wait, what?
You said it's all a question of how successfully is he going to be.
I meant successful.
Yeah. Anyway, continue.
Anyways, it's the question of how successful is he going to be.
Yeah, I agree.
And, then it's going to also, be, what other things is he getting done when he gets, is there. He's successful in the fact that, he is able to have his friends escape for the most part. Because, you have Han, but that's frozen carbonite. But,
a lot of that wasn't due to Luke.
Right.
And people will say that here's something I'm going to. People say the casino side plot in The Last Jedi is pointless and doesn't accomplish anything. I'm like, well, neither does Luke's. Neither does Luke's little plan in Empire Strikes Back. Remember, he goes off to save his friends. His friends get away with the help of someone else, Lando, and they're on their way away from Cloud City by the time Luke's during his duel with Vader, like after Luke's got his hand cut off, it's them who have to return and save him. Really, Luke showed up to kick ass and take names and ended up getting his ass kicked. So, bit of a failure on the old Skywalker part there.
But at the same time, that's a Skywalker for you.
Yeah, always rushing into shit. Just things that they can't handle. They're always just rushing in. They get their asses handed to them.
Well, and not always do they get their butts handed to them. I mean,
a lot of the time.
Well, in the films, yes. But when you look at, like, for example, like, look into the, Clone Wars,
yeah.
there were times where Anakin rushed into things.
Anakin learned to be more patient, as did Luke. But even then, even after
they
learned this stuff, they were still rushing into stuff. They have a very shoot first, ask questions later kind of way of thinking.
And then there have also been many a times where Anakin, and now we're seeing in some of the comics. I haven't read really much. I've just seen or heard things or seen some videos on them where Luke also kind of rushed into some things, but they both were successful.
Yeah.
So I mean, it
doesn't fail from all the time, but it's still not a healthy thing to do.
Absolutely.
I mean, obviously, if this is your main way of doing stuff, just rushing in, you're gonna fail every once in a while. So let me talk about some stuff I liked about this film. For one thing, I think, yes, it is the darkest of the films, and it works out here. All the actors give fantastic performances, mainly Harrison Ford. I think this is my favorite movie where Harrison Ford has played Han Solo. This is, I think, where he's at his soloiest.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
He's got some of his funniest lines here.
Yes.
Very sarcastic. Of course, we don't know if he's going to make it to the next one because he's frozen. They did that because they weren't sure he was going to be returning for Return of the Jedi, allegedly. But, I love Harrison Ford, especially in this. The version we watched was not the special edition or we watched the 2012 Blu-ray version on DVD. And the scene with the Emperor, it was the one where they switched the original actor out with Ian McDiarmid, and I am very thankful for that change.
I agree.
That change makes that scene 10 times better because not only does it fill a little bit of a plot hole of Vader asking the Emperor, like, how is this possible? Even though that kind of opens up another plot hole for earlier in the film. He says, I'm sure Skywalker is with them. But maybe this is just time to say, hey, how is it possible? But anyway. Because in the original version, the effect just did not age well. I mean, oh my God, it looks hideous nowadays looking back at that. The original effect, it's like they superimposed a chimpanzee's eyes onto a woman's face and then had a man speak the voice. There's a hodgepodge of acting, of acting and special effects, but it just does not hold up well today. I just think Ian McDiarmid is much better in that part. But the duel between Luke and Vader, I really love. The musical score. This is the first time we heard Empire Strikes Back. And let me tell you, they really...
Empire Strikes Back?
Or the Imperial March. And let me tell you, they really, really use the Imperial March in this movie. Like, anytime the Empire shows up on screen, da 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 da, like literally every shot where you see a Star Destroyer flying, da 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 da, which can get a little annoying after a little while, but it's still a fantastic piece of music.
That reminds me. So I have a friend. He's not much of he doesn't really like fantasy much.
Yeah.
But he's a big music guy, so he knows the music. One day, just for giggles, because I annoyed the heck out of him. Like, every time I saw him, I played the Imperial March, and by the end of the day, he was fed up with me. So,
yeah. But yeah, I think it's a very good film. In fact, objectively speaking, it's probably one of the best in the series, even though it's not one of my personal favorites. Mm-hmm. Sound design, again, is great. The effects are great. Story is great. It's just a great film. Just not one of my personal... Is there anything you dislike in this film? Or that gets to you?
I'm trying to think. I do. I'd kind of say, well, before I get to some of my more specific issues, excuse me. You have that, like I have said before, is it's a positive and a negative at the same time in that you need 4, 5. And yes, don't get me wrong, that's the way a sequel should work, but at the same time, the point to a movie, supposedly, is that it should also be able to stand on its own.
Well, that's something, I think this one does stand. You need to see the other one before, but as its own, like, again, after you've seen all the films, you can watch this one by
right,
itself.
and I agree. Fantastic. But I'm saying, kind of as I've said before, because
it's great because it builds off of 4.
Right, and also it's so great because it builds off of 4, and not just that, but also you're not supposed to jump right into things, but you have some people that do that, and 3, you also have the fact that people have all these different orders in which they prefer or would like to or recommend people to watch.
Yeah.
The Star Wars in. I always say it should, in my opinion, should be seen in release order.
Yeah.
And I think that this builds the story the best way, and that's just the way that I think it makes it better in that way, that you get to view it in that way, and it builds the story that way.
Yeah,
but at the same time, I think it's so good because there's 4.
Yeah.
So being more specific.
Back on topic. What are some issues you have with the film itself?
Right. That's what I was. Yeah. So in the film itself, I think it's going to sound funny in a way, but I'll explain. Well, not funny, ha, but funny like that doesn't make sense.
Get on with it! No.
I wish there was a little bit more Vader, but I'm going to explain what I mean by that. When we see Vader in the film, we see more of him kind of being, lack of a better way to say it, administrative, which is what what Vader does. But I feel the only times we really see him, how should I put it, not necessarily administrative, is you got, the chamber scene where he's sitting there and he gets the helmet. You have where he's the transmission with Palpatine. Mm-hmm. And
I think he's a lot more threatening in this one than he is in A New Hope.
Right. And there's a good point to that. But I feel that the only part of Vader that we see in this film is him just being
leading the Empire.
Well, leading the Empire, but being the guy that's pointing the finger at everybody. I wished there was more of him doing things compared to being the guy pointing fingers and choking people. Which, don't get me wrong, it's still fun. Actually, well, not necessarily seeing him in action. I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to that, but if done well. But maybe more of some extra, what is he doing when he's not ordering people around? And not necessarily...
I don't know. I disagree. I think that kind of way of filming Vader works to this movie's advantage because it makes Vader seem so much more driven. He doesn't have time for anything else. He's only focused on capturing the Rebels and Skywalker. That's all his focus is on, and I think that's all it should be on in this film. Where you get into the next one, you get more of a feel for Vader as a character, more of a sympathetic and tragic character. And then you get to the prequel. So I think here it's best for him to be a villain.
Well, and I'm not saying that he isn't a villain. I'm just saying I feel like, how when you see the same thing over and over again, and it's just like... But at the same time, don't get me wrong, I love the film, and also... yes, I agree. It's great in the way they did it, and it builds into the next one, and you get more of a character for him. But I feel like, in some ways, there was a little bit left too open, in the film for Vader, that kind of made you kind of like, well, is all he is just this mean old dude? Which, I mean, don't get me wrong, you want that. But it's just kind of, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's kind of like all we know about him is just pointing fingers, choking, and
slashing.
Right. So don't get me wrong. That's what a villain, yeah, it should be. But at the same time, you kind of wish you had more of a knowing who he is, which I know it's all the mystery.
Yeah,
but
and I think that's why I don't think it's a downside for me. It's because I love all this. I love the mystery of who he is.
I agree.
So, but I can see why that might be more of an issue for you.
Well, and I'm not saying that it's a complete problem and it needs to be changed or it's not right. I'm just saying it's one of my nitpicky things that sometimes, can kind of be like, well, it makes you question a little much when you really know the story. It's just it's kind of like you wish there was something else there. But other than that, I feel that we also, because I think kind of as you were saying, things were dragged out with the Falcon, and it's not that that's what my issue is. My issue is we don't see a lot of Luke in that. I mean, we do flashback in there, but all we see is a few scenes.
Yeah.
And I think there could have been a couple more flashes in there.
Yeah, they had some Dagobah footage with Luke cut, and I think if they kept some of that in, that probably could have been a bit cooler to see.
Right, and I think that because I feel like our...
Then again, it can't all just be about Luke. I think they had a very healthy balance of characters.
Right, I agree. This is just me being very, very, very nitpicky. And don't get me wrong, love the film. It's just...
You just wanted a little bit more Luke.
Well, right. And like I said, all these things I've said are just the very nitpicky stuff. It's to the point, it's not like things that I'm like, there is something tragically wrong with this that needs to change compared to maybe some of the other films where I'm like, there's a few places where I'm like, well, I wished it was this way instead of that way, or maybe it was just reworded or whatnot, because Empire is so well done that I think that, it's hard to kind of really say, hey, here's what should be done, here's what was done wrong or right or whatever.
Yeah.
It's just kind of like Empire is its own film that kind of has its own... There's no other film in my mind that has this kind of feeling and type of motion in the story.
Mm-hmm.
And so, in that way, you can't change it, and you don't want to. But it's just, there are some of these, when you know the story so well, and you kind of rewatch things, you're kind of like, well, I wish this would have been done more, or this would have been just a little different, because then I think it would have been interesting. But again, I'm not writing the story, and it's not our point.
Every Star Wars film is like that. When after you watch it a couple of times, you think about stuff that you would have added in your own mind, make it a bit better to you.
And again, but we're not writing the story, and we're not supposed to. It's the story of Star Wars, and that's the way it should be.
Yeah. Now, for me, a few things I didn't care for with this film. Again, I mentioned the Falcon, Dragon, and 3PO, so I won't go into any more detail on those. But another thing I'm not a huge fan of with this film is kind of a problem I have with A New Hope, too, is that, again, there's not a huge range of worlds we visit. And the ones we do in this film, whereas Tatooine was very, very interesting because it had all these different types of people living on it. Cloud City and Hoth are not as interesting because we never get to really meet the people of Cloud City. And there are no real people on Hoth that we see, except from that Wampo, but he doesn't talk and he gets his arm cut off. The worlds in this one are not very interesting. I don't want to know more. In some ways, I want to know more about these worlds, but from what the film's given us, it just seems like, oh, well, that's kind of boring. I don't want to know any more about that. You want to see more of these interesting aspects of these different worlds. Like, even The Last Jedi, for the problems I have with the casino scene, what it gave us there was interesting. We were seeing all these different types of people, talking to each other, moving around, playing games, laughing, gambling, doing bad things, doing good things. And with this one, like in Cloud City, all we really see is just people walking around while the main characters talk. And that's just not very interesting to me. Like the planets they visit visually, aside from Cloud City, which can be very beautiful to look at, but then when you see Coruscant in comparison, like in the prequels, it doesn't look as impressive to me. I just think the worlds aren't very interesting in this one. So that 3PO and then the stuff with the Falcon and Dragon are my main issues with this film. Overall, though, closing thoughts, I really do enjoy the film. I know Aaron does too.
Oh, yeah.
Just not my particular favorite, but it is up there. It's not at or near the bottom of the list. I still very much enjoy The Empire Strikes Back. It gave us a lot of story. It gave us a darker change. Gave us some great music. A lot of story building. And yeah, I'm going to watch it again probably many, many more times before I die.
That just got morbid real quick. Anyway.
We're all born to die, Aaron.
Bum, 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 ba, ba, bum, ba, bum, ba, bum.
Anyway, if you like this video, leave your thoughts in the comments. What did you like? What did you not like? Why are we Hitler for not putting this film at the top of our favorites list? And subscribe to the channel. Yeah.
And hit that notification bell.
Yeah. May the Force be with you.
Always.